everyone. Thank you for joining us in this new episode of our People Power Health Inside interview series. Today, we have a dear friend as our guest, and I'm going to ask my friend if he can introduce himself with our people. And a way in which I usually ask this question is, if you walk into a room full of people you have never met, how would you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Sam. And by the way, you got my name perfect, you know? Great
Thank
stuff. Great stuff. My name is Mo. Normally, it takes about 10 minutes to get people to say it properly, because it's a great icebreaker. So my name is Nqobizitha in full. And I come from a place in Zimbabwe, which is in Southern Africa, a place called Matopo Hills. It's what you'd call a rural area. Yeah, most people know rural areas. And Sam, you'll enjoy this fact, and we can geek over it another time. There in Matopo, there are these balancing rocks, and apparently there's some that look like that in Mexico. So yeah, we'll geek over that in another conversation. Yeah, so Matopo agrarian community, wonderful people, part of many people that are in Southern Africa, and the Bantu all the way up to Uganda, you have Bantu people. So very cool people. That's where I come from. That's where I come from.
Amazing, thank you. And let's talk a little bit about how you grew up and how you got involved with the work that you currently do. You are part of the team CA, and we are going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But how was that period of time of this young boy running across town and then finding about what leadership was?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, so in a lot of ways, because of how leadership is understood. First of all, depending on who you ask, you'll get just as many definitions of what leadership is. But what I would later come to understand as leadership, I mean, I grew up knowing like matter of fact, right? That's how that's just culture. That's how people live together in community. And I'd spend quite a bit of time in Matopo in my formative years. I remember particularly around the time that I was 10, probably, yeah, or younger than that. I'd go to those community meetings that my grandfather would kind of chair, right? We'd be sitting maybe in the kraal where you have cattle, or you'd be sitting under the shade of a mopane tree, and there'd be the whole community would be there. You'd have young people, old people, women, men, and they'd be singing, ululating every now and then. And, people would talk about the issues of the day. It might be about the rains that might be late, harvesting. It might be about, how much water we got out of the river and when not to use the river. That's where I first learned about conservation, for instance. But we didn't call it that, But you got a sense that people were grounded in their space. They knew how to interact with the environment in a sustainable way, and just generally the issues of life would be discussed in those conversations. I'd later come to kind of learn of it as a way of leadership. That diversity getting to decisions, not necessarily via consensus, but via discussion, because you'd have young people bringing in innovative ideas. You'd have, issues around education or whatever it might be, but you got the sense that, life was happening there. So for me, that was leadership. Community, it was not defined by one's role in society or their standing, everyone could lead. So that's how I've kind of approached most of my professional, wearing different hats, be it in HR or strategy or conservation. At some point, I started doing work that was put in a box called leadership. So that's how we end up here. That's a windy answer, but that's my leadership story. Kind of learning it as Ubuntu, as we call it. Just recognizing being spiritual, being physical, being even those animals around us, where you respected that and the river and everything around you. So that's leadership to me.
Thank you. And you mentioned several keywords, and I would like to stop just for a minute or two. You talk about community talking about the issues. Is there any particular moment or any particular example that you could remember now about the community talking about the issues of the day?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of those. And, now I'm also thinking about all the community meetings that I've been to, right? Whether it's with communities in the Kruger National Park, one of the biggest national parks in the world. It covers about I want to say 5 countries, right? I can be corrected there, but Zimbabwe, Zambia, Mozambique, South Africa, Botswana, even there's a transfrontier area, that the Kruger kind of straddles. And some of the community meetings I'd go there to there were about, say at the time, the scourge of rhino poaching that was happening there. And of course, it wasn't just an issue of there's bad guys that come and kill our animals. It was more nuanced than that. There's issues of socioeconomics, there's issues of poverty, and in those spaces that are very unequal, because you have, on the one hand, very wealthy, spaces in those game reserves, and just next door, abject poverty, So it was conversations about community, how all those people in that space can find themselves in a situation where resources are more equitably shared, issues of justice, restorative justice. You have people who had been displaced from their lands. So very complex issues, but under those trees, in the community, you'd have very vibrant and consequential conversations, So yeah, I can think of that. And nowadays it's climate change, right? And how it touches all our lives. I mean, it's one of the defining issues of our time. And so, yeah, there's a cool project that I'm doing that I can chat about, around that too.
Sure, and we can take that as a cue and start moving to the next part of the interview, because at People Power Health, we have been working with adaptive change advisors for a couple of years, and I'm really interested in knowing a little bit more and listening from you about, first of all, how did you started your work at ACA, and what are some of the projects that you have been working on, both in climate, which is obviously one of the key topics that People Power Health is also working on, or some other of the projects that you have involving healthcare professionals, immunization professionals, etc. So maybe we can start there. How did you started at ACA, and then some of the projects that you're involved in?
Oh, great. Yeah. So how did I start with ACA? That was about about a decade ago, I think. I met Eric, one of my dear friends and colleagues, and a lot of the friends and colleagues that we have now. I did a leadership fellowship in New York. And, besides meeting very cool people in those fellowships, it was again the community, right, of people that are doing amazing things across the world. And Eric at the time was one of our facilitators, right? And we kind of, hit it off. And very, very quickly we started working together. And it's been years and years, but it's been, doing wonderful work around the world of community building, of movement building, of organizing. And so, that's how I met you guys, of course, People Power Health. We've been doing some very fun work with immunization professionals throughout the pandemic and slightly before the pandemic. So when COVID-19 happened, it found us working with community health workers across the world, East Africa, West Africa, North India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. Very cool people. All people working, to save lives, the healing professions. And some of my favorite people. So we've interacted with hundreds of immunization professionals and helping them, gain skills in organizing, practical tools to do their work, to do their work well. So that's been fun. And of course we're running a course right now actually on leadership and organizing. And Sam and I share space with some of the most wonderful people in the world that are immunization professionals that are dealing with very difficult, kind of circumstances. And so, of course, People Power Health and ACA kind of joined our forces there to try and, help in those efforts. And it's been very cool. Now the other work that People Power Health and ACA are busy thinking about is work with about 10,000 climate activists, young climate activists spread out across the world. And those part of a network of about 55,000 young activists across the world who care about climate, right? And we're working in that space of intergenerational climate justice, to help young people drive meaningful change within their communities because they're already doing it, right? And it's an interesting kind of situation where some young people risk losing most from climate change, right? And are systematically kind of excluded from conversations to address it. And it's part of our work to kind of strengthen some of their organizing, some of their, kind of approaches to doing this work of leadership. And so those are some of the kind of projects that are top of mind for me that I'm most excited about.
Excellent.
Yeah.
No. Thank you for sharing those. And a couple of weeks ago, we had a conversation with a colleague that is working on the climate justice topics. And one of the things that she said is that what kind of world I'm leaving to my children. And yeah, I mean, I agree that's a really powerful statement. The values that conveys are very clear. So as we start to move towards the last part of our interview, what would you say that are some of those key values or some of those forces that make you get up and work with these teams, with these organizations, I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what gets me up in the morning, Sam, you're asking about purpose, man. You didn't tell me you'd be asking about difficult questions like that. Yeah, what gets me up and what keeps me up at night? It's my work has primarily been about people, and that's communities, and that's not to exclude sentient beings, because we live within an environment, and how we interact with that environment is important for sustainability. So I think how we solve some of the pressing issues of our time, whether it's COVID-19 or climate change or public health, how we do it so it's inclusive. So it takes into consideration marginalized communities, and those that have the most to lose, farming communities that are affected by droughts and cyclones and so on. So you're talking food systems, and some of the poorest people feed us, smallholder farmers, right? Feed the rest of the world. And so I think there's an intersectionality of a lot of issues, right? And I think with leadership, with democratizing leadership, we begin to kind of think of how we can, like, Einstein can't have an interview without quoting Einstein, right? Einstein's quip about you can't solve problems at the level of which you created them, so rethinking some of our energy sources, how we do extraction, or whether we need to do some of the extraction that we do. So working on all those key issues and using this framework of leadership as just the toolkit, right? So let's solve all of this. Everything is kind of solvable. Human beings are very smart people, species. What do we call human beings?
Yeah. Beings. And
beings,
one final question as we wrap up that I like to ask our guests is there any particular book, movie, song, some kind of media that you find inspiring, that you would like to share with other people and tell them, oh, I recommend you to listen to this song, watch this movie, video, read this book? Is there anything that comes to your mind?
Yeesh, Sam. Sometimes I DJ the sessions that Sam and I have. So okay, some of my playlists from that: Miles Davis, Fela Kuti, Jay Dilla, a lot of South African jazz, and music that has drums to it. We're very musical people, Sam, down here. So you should look up Amapiano and Afrobeats too. There's one or two songs that I throw in there. So you can tell music kind of, gets me going. That's how I kind of get on the balcony, Sam. How I take my kind of distance from some of the, there's a lot, it's very heavy in the world right now, with everything that's going on. So taking care of self is very important. So reading, what am I reading right now? I'm reading something by Daniel Kahneman, Noise.
Okay.
And, what else? There's another one, Clear Thinking, and Credo Muta. Reading some Credo Muta. So yeah, we'll add this to the show notes, and I'll put some of my recommendations there.
Is there any final comment that you would like to share? As I told you previously, most of the people that look at these interviews, that read these newsletters, are healthcare professionals that are thinking about getting involved with some issues in their communities or in the world. Some of them are seeing themselves as activists. Some are still wondering what they should do. Any message that you could share with them before we finish the interview?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of beginning with how much respect and admiration I have for healthcare professionals. You know, they don't get the kudos that they deserve. And I mean, what can I share with healthcare professionals? The hundreds that we've kind of been talking to often, it's, you know, you're already doing amazing work, and thank you. And you know, connecting to one of the things that we kind of lose when we're working in spaces like that, caring professions, is we might kind of get separated from why we started to do this work. You know, I was talking to a group of folks in Cape Town a few months ago. Night tags, I think, were there from the African continent. And there was a lady there who had been sitting quietly for like 5 days. And, you know, with all the interactions, I noticed as one of the facilitators that she wasn't very vocal, right? And at the last day, I asked her, why did you start, you know, why did you become a nurse? Why did you join the profession that you joined? And she told this beautiful story about how she used to administer the injections to her grandfather when she was a child, you know, and really kind of take care of the family. And that's how she started nursing people, by nursing her grandfather. And I tell you, by the time she was done, there were a few dry eyes in that room of healthcare professionals. And she was just a clear example of how connecting to purpose, you know, the things that we really care about, how powerful that can be in the way that, you know, we show up in the world. So yeah, just a message to the healthcare professionals. We're big fans, and we're part of your community. Whatever you need, Sam, we're there, right?
Yeah, no, thank you for this time and for this conversation. And everyone, thank you for following up again and this interview series. Please share it with your colleagues and let other people know about the amazing work that is being doing by ACA. Thank you all, and see you soon. Thanks.
Cheers, Sam.